This local marketing update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing you your weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member call is going to be Wednesday, May 14th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to listen and subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, this week we've got, it's kind of a quiet week. Not a lot has happened, but I've got some really big news that I want to talk about. And, well, first off, Matt Cutts had come on the air and said that over time, backlinks will become less important. Or an interpretation of that could be that in time, links are no longer going to be relevant for SEO. And the next thing is we've got a study in regards to local searches and some new data and a different spin on it. So I just wanted to decipher some of that and get an understanding why 56% of all on-the-go searches have a local intent. And finally, for this week, a local business tip is going to be don't get links. Go figure. Well, that's kind of big news. Now think about this for a moment, guys. 1996, the Google algorithm was formed. In 1997, the Google Corporation was formed. The Google Corporation was formed solely on the premise of what the Googlebot algorithm accomplished. Now, back in 1996, the entire algorithm was built entirely on links. Over time, Google has gotten much better and begun to look at different factors, but think about this for a moment. The whole concept of one website linking to another website was the premise of the Google algorithm. That was the premise that started the Google Corporation, and Google went on to be the fastest growing company in the history of any business in the world. And now they want to announce that they want to get rid of links. Wow. Well, what is being said here? So, Matt Cutts has come on the air and created a video and said that in time or over time, backlinks will become less important. Well, this seems to be taking the SEO industry by surprise. And there's a lot of people that are talking about it. And if you've been listening to Local Marketing Source for some time, this should not come as a surprise to you at all. This is only confirmation of everything that we've been discussing over the last few years as to strategy. I was in my mastermind group this morning, and actually, no, I wasn't in my mastermind group, but one of my colleagues in my mastermind group sent me a message today, and he says, "What have you done for your clients that have been hit by Panda and Penguin? What's your strategy?" Well, I don't have a strategy. I don't have clients that were hit by Panda and Penguin. In other words, we didn't see any drop in rankings. I did see a drop in my own personal website, my own personal blog, and I do have to go through link cleanup process and disavow, and that's because that's the only site in the world that I ever did what other people told me to do. I had somebody else come out and say in our mastermind group to another member and say, "Why does your page have 2 H1 tags? I was told that you shouldn't only have one." Well, I jumped into conversation and asked the question, well, what's the best for the reader? And we looked at it, and we all agreed that the piece of content that we were discussing required 2 H1 tags for the benefit of the reader. But the argument still came that the search engines did not like that. Well, that's true. So what should an author do? Continue to push forward with the content that's most relevant for the user, or modify the content to satisfy the needs of the search engine? Well, the latter discussion is search engine optimization, optimizing a website to satisfy the search engines. So, SEO says use only one H1 tag. Great. I'm not an SEO expert, I guess, because I don't say that. I definitely provided the argument that both H1 tags are relevant. Well, guess what? That site is still ranking #1, and it's no surprise. So, but back to this concept of links. Well, you see, all links really did was just kind of a MacGyver approach, a duct tape approach to mimic what was transpiring among humans. Well, humans interpret content and we evaluate content. Some content we share, some content we get education from. Other content we get the wrong information from. A lot of media news outlets, for example, you're going to get different information from America media as you would from British media on the same worldly topics. So, if links were around to mimic human behavior, and links in time are no longer going to be factors that are relevant, that tells me that Google is getting better and they are much more confident in their ability to identify the social paradigms that exist surfacing particular content. Well, what does that mean? We eat at busy restaurants, and we eat at a busy restaurant because they've got lots of customers that are going in. We know that it's going to take us a longer time to get a table. Our service may actually be degraded a little bit at a busy restaurant because we're not the only center. We're not the center of attention for the servers. But we eat at busy restaurants because we know that the food is going to be good. Content is no different. We would consume good content if we know it's good, and we have to assume, remember I just said consume, we have to assume that good content is going to be busy content. In other words, it's going to be read more and more and shared and discussed among others. Isn't the best form of marketing always been word of mouth? Haven't we always heard of that? The best marketing you could have for your company is word of mouth marketing. How do you get word of mouth marketing? You get yourself out in the community and you provide a good service. So that's why my approach to internet marketing has never been different than that. You get yourself out into the internet community and offer a good service. It's that simple. That's why we talk about reviews, and that's why we talk about the 3 pillars of local search. And that old expression, well, content is king. Oh, bullshit. Stop telling me that content is king. We know darn well that content is king. It always has been. I mean, what are some of the best sellers that are out there? Let's face it. Why is a bestseller even a metric on a book to tell how effective it is? Let's think about that. How many books have you seen that say bestseller on it? Well, they're creating the busy restaurant syndrome. That's all they are doing. That stamp on the front of that book that says as seen on TV, or when they put authoritative and said reviewed by, or this book is a bestseller on this list, we're just creating the busy restaurant syndrome. So everything we do on the internet is creating that busy restaurant syndrome. And links are no longer viewed as a factor that is organic. We can manipulate links. We know this because we've done SEO. I've done it for so many years. We can manipulate anchor text, and we know that these are factors. But I say, blah, don't even bother with that stuff. So Google has come out and said, over the next few years, links are not going away. They're still going to be used to determine reputation. But over time, Google will rely less and less on links for reputation purposes. Clearly understand what Matt is saying when he says that. Links are going to continue less and less on reputation purposes. That reputation is a key word, in my opinion, at Google is suggesting. And if you decipher what is reputation, well, didn't I just give you guys a stat last week that 36% of the SERP results display authorship, yet only 3% of websites on the internet have an authorship markup? Guys, what is all that about? That's about reputation, authorship reputation. You increase the author's authority, the sites are going to increase. How do you increase an author's authority? You create quality content and you expose it and get it distributed. And of course, socially liked. It's going to get socially liked when it's good content. Then the question obviously becomes, well, how do you write good content? I mean, I talk about all that stuff, and that's when we start to open up the discussion of, oh, all those internet marketers are talking about avatars. Well, whatever. Just segment your audience, create your customer personas, and create content that's relevant for that particular persona that answers their objections. Because everything that we sell, people don't buy a product or service, they buy a state, and a state is an anticipated feeling they're going to receive from that product or service. So as a marketer, it's our job to discuss the benefits, not the features, not the advantages of that product or service, but the benefits. And the benefits of a product or service are going to overcome all the objections that a buyer will have that they naturally go through. Buyers go through a process before they buy something. They're serving either a need or a want. And businesses buy off of needs. Sometimes consumers will buy off of needs, sometimes they'll buy off of wants. But understanding what those needs and what those wants are the type of dialogue that is going to be discussed. So if you're in my business and you're a chiropractor and you're dealing with a chiropractor that focuses in on sciatica, I'm going to talk about pain management. I'm going to talk about how my how life is so much more difficult when I've got a very painful stenosis situation or my sciatic nerve is being pinched. If I'm dealing with people that are sports oriented within that field, I'm going to discuss how sports can affect that sciatica nerve and how that impeding sciatic nerve is going to have a big effect on the performance on myself as an athlete. And how regular chiropractic care utilizing, let's say, the Cox technique is going to relieve some of that pain and in turn allow for a more fulfilling lifestyle to go out and play the sports that I love. Well, guess what? That type of content is going to work for a chiropractor that focuses on sciatica in sports medicine. I bring that up as an example because that's one of my clients. In any event, don't get hung up on this concept that Google is not going to be counting links in the future. Continue to do with what we promote, and you will be fine. All right, so ComScore has come out with a study that has said 78% of local mobile searches result in an offline purchase within a few hours, less than 24 hours. We also know that 50% of local searches are happening on mobile devices. So almost 8 out of 10 searches on mobile devices, or 4 out of 10 searches across the board, 40% ultimately are going to result in a local purchase. That's huge. Now, 56% of searches when people are mobile on their mobile phones also have local intent. Remember the days when people started coming out with internet marketing products that said, your mobile marketing strategy? And I questioned that over and over, and I was like, well, why Why is mobile a strategy on its own? Even like social media marketing experts that deal with that focus in on small businesses. That makes no sense to me. I mean, the stuff that we do for SEO provides a social media presence for our clients. We are videographers for them. We're copywriters for them. We do their press releases, public relations. So when we look at some of these numbers, one would definitely argue and say, well, small businesses have to be on mobile. They have to be shown on mobile. We have to get SEO ranking for mobile. The algorithm's different. The algorithm is different for Yahoo. It's also different for Bing and Yelp and Facebook and Google Local and Google Plus and Google's YouTube. And, we get all different results for a variety of different searches, and they're all different algorithms. And God, that's like, have you ever tried? Have any of the guys on the line ever tried to have two girlfriends at the same time? I mean, I laugh about that, and I failed miserably trying to have two girlfriends at the same time. This is way back in my younger days and my stupid days when you're, you know, late teens, early 20s. But it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, in my opinion, to do it effectively. It's the same thing goes for all the different algorithms up there. I feel like it is an impossible feat to optimize a search engine to satisfy everybody's needs. They're contradictory of one another. It happens all the time with the algorithms. Yet again, only another argument as to why we create quality marketing material for our clients as opposed to following the strategies of search engine optimization. In other words, there's no defined mobile strategy, at least not for the customers that we go after. We know they have to be found on local searches. But do we study the mobile algorithms? Or do we study the desktop algorithms? Or do we say fuck it to the algorithm? It's like I'm learning at Local Marketing Source. This is a constant battle that I have as Local Marketing Source earns new followers and new students and new members. We're constantly having to answer a variety of questions based off of that notion. Well, what should I be looking at? And I know there's so many different red flags. I could probably write a book about the moment I get into an internet marketing conversation with somebody. I hear the red flags and I know right off the bat where they're at in their internet marketing career. I wholeheartedly and firmly believe, of course, I'm extremely biased when I say this, but so be it. You could read between the lines. You could make your own determinations about whether or not you want to listen to our opinions. But I strongly believe that in order to beat the search engines, and I'm talking long term, 5 years and 10 years and 20 years down the road, you've got to have a good business. That's the number one search marketing strategy that I will put out there. It all starts with you and your business. And if you've got happy customers that are talking about you, you're going to do all right. Those that are going to excel are those businesses that properly market themselves, just like back in the 50s and in the 70s. And a business that properly markets itself looks at itself and says, well, we've only got so much time, we've only got so much money, and we've got to get the best bang for our buck. Are we going to go to the newspaper? Are we going to go to the Chamber of Commerce? Are we going to go to a radio ad? Are we going to get a billboard? Do we need business cards? Do we print stuff on the side of our vehicles? Do we hand flyers out? The list can go on and on and on of different ways for a new business to get customers without the internet. Well, those are all the same things that you should be doing, and just making sure that the search engines can see that you're doing these things. And guess what? You'll rank number one. All right. So on that note, I said this week's small business tip is going to be don't get links. I mean, if a small business wants to rank number one in Google, most search engine optimization experts, even to this day, is going to say, just get yourself a bunch of links going to your website. Well, look at it this way. We said that links might be going away, but the whole concept of links, the whole back end of the algorithm, none of that is going away. Let's call a link exposure for a moment here. Let's call a citation exposure. Let's call a reference of the owner exposure. In other words, any time that business is mentioned on the internet is exposure. Whether it's exposure of a NAP, that's your name, address, and phone number, of just a business name, of maybe a website link, of maybe an email address, maybe the owner, maybe the manager, maybe a review, all of that is exposure. Now, of all the different types of exposure that exists, a link between one website and another website is yet just another means of exposure. So if my business is gotten written about by, let's say, CNN, that's national exposure. That's a big deal. I'd have a lot of people read that and learn about my business. Now, what if CNN decided to link to my website, or they decided to link to my Google profile, or they decided not to link at all and just put my name in there, or decided to put my phone number in there, or my business address? These are all different ways that CNN could expose me. Why would a search engine want to give me more authority because CNN decided to put some blue text with an underline on it and a link to my site, as opposed to my name and my address that I can go to with the same amount of clicks utilizing the web browsers we have today and do a Google search and get to my website? The same amount of clicks. It doesn't make sense, does it? And that's what I believe Google is saying when they say that they are no longer going to be putting value on links for reputation purposes. I think our industry is going to stop talking about links and start talking about exposure. Has anybody ever seen a tool that can measure a business's exposure that's out there? No. You can get the number of links. You can look at the authority of links, and Moz is going to tell you a different authority for a website than, say, what Bright Local is going to tell you. But they'll all give you certain figures. And yeah, you can figure out scores. But the thing is where none of these tools get it, and that all of us so-called internet marketers are utilizing these tools is, let's say, my business and your business, and we both have exposure on a website that's giving us, let's say, a ranking or a number of 90 out of 100. That's high authority. It's usually a percentage basis. My business should get more authority from that than, say, a plumber's. If I am listed on an article that talks about internet marketing, why would a plumber website get any authority from that? But guess what? All of these tools look at all of that the same. So all of these tools essentially are missing marketing 101, and that's customer segmentation. That's the first things that they teach you as a marketer when you go to school. So I appreciate LMS students that tend to quote unquote get it, they're the ones that tend to grow large agencies and have customers for the long term. And that, my friends, is, in my opinion, the key to being a successful entrepreneur, is to have customers that are going to continually dig into their pockets week after week, day after day, or month after month, or year after year, and give you their money. I don't care what business you're in. You're in the restaurant business, you want your patrons to come back. If you're in the plumbing business, well, you don't want them to have the same problems. But when they have problems, you want them to call you. I'm in the membership business, automated membership business. I don't want my students to buy into my program for 1 month. That's why I give a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not happy in the first 30 days, guess what? Get out of here. Here's your money. Get out of here. We're not going to jive. We're not going to jive. You can go and buy something from somebody else that might make you feel a little bit better. And I'm sorry that I'm not the person to do that. But I've got a very good following and a very good audience that we do resonate with very, very well. And they pay me month after month after month after month. It's a good business model. So back to the tip of don't get links. Don't focus on getting links. I mean, it's not anything new that I'm talking about. This is stuff that I've constantly talked about and continually bring up. But focus on exposure of your business. And we're not worrying about citations. We're not worrying about links. Because exposure is exposure. It really should be. And if the search engines have not built in everything that I'm talking about into their algorithms, which I know they haven't, I'm doing a lot of some speculation here, folks. But guess what? I'm not the one that's being hurt by the Google algorithm updates. Do you know how many updates there are? People don't realize this. About 2 years ago, Google came out and said that they have 500 updates a year. That's almost 2 updates a day, guys. They also said that they give out updates that are bigger than the Panda or Penguin update and don't tell us. So then websites like SEO Moz and Search Engine Land go out and speculate when these updates tend to happen, and they try to reverse engineer and go back as to what changed in the algorithm, and then they tell the SEO community about it, and the SEO community changes their strategy. You're always playing a cat and mouse game. At some point in time, that race is going to be too difficult to continue to run in. All right, so on that note, that comes to the conclusion of this week's update. I'm just going to take 30 seconds right now and come back and open the floor to any questions. Well, thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week, so if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.